when did everybody on the right become such snowflakes? Oh, when did this happen?
Great question.
It is.
Well,
it is a
I think
constant.
I think it's always been that way. It's just that we weren't calling them out for it. But to me, that's part of the whole sort of the short-sightedness, the ignorance of bigotry. It's this idea that you're so hypersensitive about anything that doesn't affirm you, anything that doesn't affirm you or your beliefs or your worldview, that you've got to attack it. You don't have the internal fortitude, the backbone, the spine, the cojones to exist in a world that doesn't cater to you and bow down to you.
Alrighty, welcome in. It's your favorite political podcast. It is Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It looks like we've got a little bit of a break, a respite from the cold and the ice and the whatever else. This is a good period we're in right now. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's man. I was able to go running outdoors because I freeze when it gets below 50. I'm like an iguana, and it's what many people would call me, a lizard person. So yeah, it's I was able to get out, man. Oh, it's so great. It's I put on extra clothes so I can get the sweat like I'm in summertime. And so really got a nice I think got a nice five or so miles in on Sunday, and got some good solid run. I mean, it's nice to do that, to get out and go again outdoors and to get rid of those 12-degree days and that nonsense where we almost died. I'm happy we made it through.
Yeah. It was rough. It was rough.
It was. And it would thrill me to no end for Span and those guys to be wrong, and then there's not going to be another dose of winter come along in early March or something.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, it really would. Hey, before we get running here, let me tell you about our friends over at Wind Creek Entertainment. They are sponsors of this place. It is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. We really appreciate them and everything that they do, and the friends that they have been to not just us, but to the state of Alabama, and all the good things that they have done for this state, and the jobs. They're the state's largest hospitality employer. They are one of the state's largest employers, period. Giving all the different businesses that they operate or have a hand in at this point. I talked to a guy the other day who said, "Hey, I just wanted to stop you and tell you something," and that's usually never works out well for me when that happens. But he said, you talk about the Porch Creeks, and he said, I ran a business in Huntsville for a few years, and he said these guys came along and wanted to partner with us, and he said it's just taken off, and he said it really, they had a vision for what they were doing, and we had a vision, and he said we worked together, and he said they're exactly how you describe. They're, hey, how can we help? What can we do? And then they do it, and they get out of the way. He said he said honestly, it's like what, and we have the same. I do. I all the time have the same thing. Like, are we okay? Because we don't hear from them. They never say anything, and they're just, and then you call them like, well, man, it's great, good job. And it's kind of the same way. And so that's the kind of folks that they are, and we really do appreciate them for what they've done here. Go visit them. Look. This weekend's Valentine's Day, so I know they're booked up. So if you screwed this up and you didn't get one, give her the card and say it's coming for next week. Okay. Just look, you couldn't get away. You had other plans for this week, but next weekend or the weekend after, some other time, you're going to go, you're going to stay, you're going to go to the spa, you're going to go to the restaurants. It's going to be a whole weekend, and you're set for March Madness. Okay. You probably set all the way through the Masters. Okay. You can watch anything you want to watch if you play this right. And it'll be a good weekend for the both of you. Okay. I mean, I'm telling you, you cannot go wrong. Look them up online at Wind Creek Entertainment. Book a stay. You will enjoy it. I promise you, you're going to enjoy it with them. All right. Let's what you want to start with first? You want to start with Bad Bunny? You want to start with the PSD?
Sure. Let's start with Bad Bunny.
All right. So what'd you think?
I thought it was a spectacle in the best possible ways. It was an amazing display of artistic creativity, cultural diversity, just artistically. I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and pretend that I know his music. I don't. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend that I'm a fan of that genre. I'm not against that genre, but I don't follow that genre. But
yeah,
I got to tell you, I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the imagery, the artistry, the specificity with which they put together certain things with messaging, and I like the fact that despite all of the hate and vitriol that was directed at Bad Bunny, and by extension, I think Puerto Ricans and other Hispanic people, that the messaging was one of ultimately unity, and it was positive. I mean, what he did with that presentation was he basically said, we are here and we are proud of ourselves. We are proud of our culture, but we're also proud of and accepting of all of the people of the Americas. And as has been pointed out more than once, people in the United States sometimes arrogantly think that America applies only to us. It applies to really every nation in this hemisphere, really and truly. It's the Americas. It's North America, which includes Canada. And Mexico. It's Central America. It's South America. It's all America. And so, the real sort of, and again, this is that manifest destiny, white supremacy foolishness, but the idea that and then as we know, anyway, just fundamentally, Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the fact that people forget that or don't know that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it is. So it was just a beautiful celebration of all of us together, despite the bigotry that they had been subjected to.
Yeah, I mean, listen, conservatives have, I think Jon Stewart said best, conservatives have got quite the gall in saying that this was an attack on America when they just learned the other day that Puerto Rico was part of America.
Right.
And so, it is, so I'm not the target audience for Bad Bunny, and I feel a little silly saying the name Bad Bunny over a bunch of times. So I have no idea what he said, none, zero,
right,
and I wouldn't listen to it if you paid me to listen to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, but again. I'm an old person. I'm an old person shouting at clouds. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not that. And so I get so fed up with people who talk about the people that don't realize that they're turning into an old person. You know what I mean? And they bitch and moan about everything that's changed, and how they can't do the stuff that they like anymore, and why can't we just have X, Y, and Z? And I mean, it's so sad and pathetic. And I mean, we watched the Grammys the weekend before this.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, and so I didn't know anybody. But it was, that's me. That's not their fault. That's my fault. I'm the one that's listening to the 90 station on the radio, or if I'm in the car, or listening to audiobooks or podcasts and stuff. That's my fault, And so I had somebody ask me, is everybody who doesn't like Bad Bunny got to be a racist? I'm like, no, that's not the racist part. The racist part is not disliking Bad Bunny's music. I don't like it. Okay. But I'm not here saying I need my own safe space during the halftime of the Super Bowl,
Right.
to celebrate because Bad Bunny is destroying America by speaking in Spanish while he's performing. I mean, it's just so idiotic. It's such a lowbrow, and they made such nonsense out of this whole thing. I mean, it was so ridiculous. It's so absurd. And so, I mean, when did everybody on the right become such snowflakes? When did this happen?
Great question.
It is a
think
constant.
I think it's always been that way. It's just that we weren't calling them out for it. But I think it's that's part of the whole. To me, that's part of the whole sort of the short-sightedness, the ignorance of bigotry. It's this idea that you're so hypersensitive about anything that doesn't affirm you. Anything that doesn't affirm you or your beliefs or your worldview, that you've got to attack it. You don't have the internal fortitude, the backbone, the spine, the cojones to exist in a world that doesn't cater to you and bow down to you. That's a weakness. That's not a strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is 100% them, man. I mean, this idea that everything has got to be about you. I mean, what you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. And I mean, and people highlighted that whatever was going on at the TPUSA, whatever that, the toilet paper.
Yeah. Turning Point USA.
And it just, some of that stuff was just, it was weird and ridiculous as well. And, it just was singing about, how you can't just, I want to drive my truck and drink my beer and catch my fish. And I mean, just, who's stopping you? Who the fuck is stopping you? Go do it, my man.
Like that?
Yeah, seriously, that was a song. I just want to drive my truck. I just want to drink my beer. I just want to catch my fish. I want to mow my grass. I want to feed my dog. Those are literal lines in one of the songs that was performed.
Wow, that's hilarious.
I mean, who's stopping you, brother? Take off.
Right.
I mean, it just this idea, this victimhood that they've put upon themselves, as though they've somehow been denied an opportunity. They've not been denied anything. People are just doing other stuff, they're living their lives, and you want them to stop and live your life,
They're
stupid.
They're doing other stuff, and they're not putting your stuff ahead of their stuff, which is, I think, again, is one of the inherent sort of values of white supremacy. Not only do we have to, not only do we want to do what we do the way we do it without any impediment, we want everybody else to acknowledge that what we've got is the best and what we're doing is the best. And that's just not the way life is.
Yeah,
you learn that early. At least you should. You should learn that in kindergarten. Yeah. Everybody's got their own preferences and their own things that they like, and the fact that they don't think yours is better shouldn't be the end of the world for you.
Yeah, no. It just I don't the insecurities that they hold. It's just so insane to me. Why do you need somebody to validate you on everything? I just don't. Right. If you like it, you like it, man. Go into your corner and do it. I mean, I just
do your thing. Yeah.
I don't know. It just, I thought the performance was, for the 60th consecutive year, the performance at halftime of the Super Bowl was fine. You know what I mean? It was just, it's a performance. The only one that I have ever walked away from and said, damn, that was good. You know which one it was. It's the same one everybody felt it was. You know which one it was. It was a couple years ago with when we had Eminem, we had Dr. Dre, we had Snoop Dogg, we had 50. Okay. I mean, that everybody walked away from that and thought, that's good.
Well,
that was.
I certainly loved it, and I'm glad to hear you loved it. Now, I did hear some pushback on it, but I thought that people thought that the two most popular ones were either the Prince one or the U2 one. That's what I thought. That there was more consensus around those two.
I think people like those. Yeah, the Prince one. Although the Prince one, they were at the time, talking about how he used all these phallic symbols, and U2 got some criticism because it was the first one after 9/11, and they brought in a band from a different country, and so it just. I don't know. And, I honestly thought that the one that I had always heard was ranked the highest was Michael Jackson, the one.
I'd forgotten about that one.
But to me, and in this era of everybody criticizing everything and and everyone having an opinion on everything, I say as a person who has an opinion on everything, it was that the 90s rap one, and I just it felt like overall, there was a little bit of pushback from some stuffy white people, but I mean for the most part everybody. I think in that one, tell you what I think happened a lot. I think there was gonna be some pushback, and then everybody thought, if you did the pushback, you weren't cool. And so they wanted to be in that little club. And so they just didn't say anything, And so I think there was a lot of that. So I think, now that launched Snoop Dogg into a whole other career in his grandfather era, where he's, just out now interviewing Olympians during the Olympics coverage and all sorts of other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's, it was a Super Bowl halftime show. What did you want from
15 minutes out of, 2 hours of sports? I mean, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't there something you could do? Y'all don't have a dog to feed or something? Come on, man. All right. So the other thing that was probably the biggest story this week around here anyways was this bill that's been fairly fast-tracked through our legislature that would turn the PSC board, our Public Service Commission, which regulates our utility industries, not just Alabama Power. They don't just regulate Alabama Power, although Alabama Power is one of the companies that they do regulate. The bill would turn them into from an elected board into an appointed board, and it would allow the bill started out was going to allow the governor, the House Speaker, and the Senate President Pro Tem to appoint these folks. I think there was an amendment put on the bill by a Democrat that would just allow the governor to do that, and then it would turn it into a Senate confirmation process. So you would have nominees come in from these different people in the House and the Senate, and then the Senate would have to confirm these folks, and then they would go to the governor for the appointment. Or the governor would appoint, and then the Senate would have to confirm. Before we, what are your thoughts? What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, I think that, you're asking me for my thoughts. My thoughts really kind of align with a lot of what you said in your column about this that came out this week. And in fact, I want to read some of what you said because I thought it was that good in terms of its analysis. You said in reference to this whole process, you said you're being robbed blind up and down the line. You keep barely paying attention and being suckered in by a few random shiny objects like gay people existing or trans people maybe playing sports or anyone who isn't white doing something nefarious and getting your pockets picked. So that paragraph right there, you're talking about the Alabama voter and how the Alabama voter is often being okey-doked away from things that really matter and things that for which they should be paying attention to by other things that maybe they relate to on a visceral level, but in the final analysis don't really have any day-to-day impact on their lives.
Right.
You go on to say, look around you. We have one of the most regressive tax systems in the country. We have one of the worst potentials for upward mobility. We have one of the worst healthcare systems. We have one of the worst education systems. We have some of the highest utility bills in the country. In other words, while we're being okey-doked, this is the state of our state. And regardless of what Governor Ivy has said, God bless her, or any other governor, this is the actual state of life, for the average Alabamian. And then Josh, you point the finger at us, the voters, and you say you elected every single person responsible for all of that. You go on to say, and many of you were proud to do it. You proudly reelected those people multiple times, and you don't sit around singing the praises of the party of which those people are members, talk about the success of that party, and then pretend that something beneficial to you, a working person trying to make ends meet every month, has been accomplished. So when it comes to this PSC board, and you go on to say some other things, but I think, I wanted to read that section because I think you have really hit on what the problem is in terms of how we think about this board and just politics in general in Alabama. So with this board, what you have said is, if I'm understanding you correctly, you said basically, you know what? Yes, it makes more sense to keep it an elected board. But here's the reality. If we as Alabamians don't change our thinking and don't start paying attention and being more engaged and really paying attention to how these political institutions affect our daily quality of life, then it won't matter whether it's an appointed board or an elected board. Mm-hmm. And I think if I captured accurately what you were saying, I agree 100%. I would prefer there to be an elected board, but I think the reality is that if we don't change how we engage with this electoral process, if we're not more thoughtful about who we elect, then it won't matter. We'll just continue to get what we're getting anyway.
Yeah, that's basically what the point. I would say maybe I would go as far as to say it actually, if we're going to continue to do it like we've been doing it, then we would be better off to have this bill in place, because at least the bill puts some parameters in there. It puts some requirements on the people who can be appointed. It requires them to have a certain degree. It requires them to have some experience, in certain fields that would lend itself to regulating utility industry. And like, again, I'm going to say, this is not just simply about power. I mean, this is another problem. We're actually talking on we have a weekly call that we do every Monday with all the reporters and stuff that work at APR, and we were talking about this, and somebody said, I bet most people can't even name who's on the PSC. I said, can't name who's on the PSC? Hell, most of these people don't even know the PSC exists. And if they do know it exists, they don't know what it does, Right. And that's a big problem, because you don't know that it doesn't just regulate power. It regulates, the phone companies, and it regulates the natural gas companies. There was a big scandal a few years ago, in which some gas lines blew up in Birmingham. All right. The PSC is responsible for regulating those things and making sure that those gas lines are in good working order. And some of the companies have not updated their natural gas lines, or at that point they had not. And so that turned into a very big local scandal, although it never really went anywhere. I mean, I was at the Advertiser at the time, and I remember there was literally a federal case about this, because the judge, I won't name any names, tried to prior restrain us from printing the documents that we received about these old natural gas lines, because it was a matter of security, they claimed. All of that stuff goes into this suit that the PSC is responsible for. And here's the thing. There is no entity in Alabama that more directly affects every single person in Alabama on a daily basis than the PSC. None. Every time that you're bitching about that bill that comes to your house for phones, sewer, all of those things, all of the utilities that you get, that's all goes back to what the PSC is doing and these people who you're electing to this job. And if you asked the worst possible person for the consumer, okay, that's who y'all elected. And you've done it for the majority of my lifetime. You have elected the absolute worst people to be on that board. And they have done the absolute worst job of regulating things for my whole life. That's what you've done. So this idea that now we're now all upset because we can't vote for this anymore. You weren't voting for it to begin with. You weren't paying attention.
One of the candidates this go around for, I think it's seat 2 on the board, is an old conservative Republican friend of mine named Brent Woodall. Brent and I used to do a TV show together back in the 90s. And Brent is now running for that seat. And I know the conversations that he and I have had, not very recently, but I'd say several years ago, because he's been looking at this PSC board for a long time. It kind of hit me to the fact back then that, there was a lot of dysfunction on that board and a lot of really neglect, as you're suggesting.
Yeah.
And not to be too, I'm going to say discriminatory, because that's probably the best word I can come up with right now. But, it always kind of struck me as interesting that one of the people who kept getting reelected to that board, Twinkle is her first name. Twinkle.
Right. Yeah.
And then when you'd start looking at, well, what is she? Okay, the name that doesn't seem like a grown woman's name, but okay, and then when you start actually looking at, well, what does she do? And what role is she playing? And it just seemed like my buddy Brent had it right, that she and at least one of the other members on that board, whose name I can't remember, they just were not, they're holding seats and holding power, but they weren't doing anything with it that really, truly represented the needs of the people.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's like I said, it just, you couldn't pick worse people. And it just, I mean, I'm not saying like from a morality standpoint, I'm not calling these people immoral or anything. I'm just saying for the job that they're in, they had no background in it. They had no training in it whatsoever. They don't, mostly if you go to the meetings or listen to any of the meetings, they obviously don't have a lot of education in what they're talking about most of the time. A couple of them do, not necessarily in the best ways. I think there's some conflicts of interest that have taken place there as well. But it just, I don't know. It's to me, it's the most frustrating. It has always been the most frustrating positions, and the best example of how Alabamians don't focus on things that truly matter. I mean, because and honestly, it's been kind of the litmus test for me to see whether or not people are actually going to care about stuff. Because if you can't get wound up to go out and be bothered to vote for people who affect that bill that comes to the multiple bills usually that come to your house every month. Right. I mean, you see people all the time talking about their power bills now, because of what's taking place and some of the, the Trump administration and what they've done, and all of it has gone into this soup to make these problems. To me, you would think it would be such an easy next step to say, well, wait a minute, I need to vote for somebody better than this, and maybe lower those bills in some way, shape, or form. But they never do. They never have done it. And these people have run the stupidest campaigns ever, running against Obama. I mean, literally, one of the guys who's currently on this board run a whole campaign against Obama.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Again, I mean, and it goes back to what you said in your column. I mean, the playbook for one party for sure has been just the okey doke people with issues that have much less impact on their everyday life. Truth of the matter is, as you're saying, even if you want to be against Obama, okay, you've got a right to do that. But Obama had less impact on your day-to-day life than the the PSC board had or has. Yeah. I mean, it's just, It's
Oh,
kind of
absolutely it does. I
crazy.
mean,
It's kind of
there's
crazy.
hardly anybody that has more effect. There's hardly
Yeah.
anybody that has more effect on your
Yeah.
life on a daily basis. I mean, maybe your county commissioner or local city councilman does, but that's based on potholes and lights and other things like
Trash
that,
collection and
Yeah. I mean, that has more of an effect on you, certainly. But
Yeah.
at the same time, nobody's affecting your pocketbook like this,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why people keep saying pocketbook. Who the hell has a pocketbook anymore? But I mean, it's,
Yes, an old phrase. That's true.
it is. It is. But listen,
Your bank account.
we've got to start
Your
paying more
credit union
attention.
account.
Is the whole goal here? Okay, that's what I'm saying about this. I mean, in a perfect world, electing the PSC board, electing every board would be far better because they're then held more directly accountable to the people. But the way we've been doing it, I don't think that's true right now. And and until we get our stuff together, it's not going to be. And so I just, to me, it was a lot of fake outrage. It's probably going to raise some money for a few people here or there, but otherwise, I just, I think that it's really got to get back to people paying attention to what matters and stop being fooled by nonsense. Come on.
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
That's
we're
right.
we're gonna slide
That's
out.
right.
We're gonna come back with Seth Levi from Southern Poverty Law Center and talk about some of the the Trump administration's rewriting of history. And we'll have Tabitha Isner on later, and then we'll wrap this baby up with a bonehead. So we'll be back in a moment. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.